Welcome to This Fat Girl Life, a podcast about self-worth, loving yourself, and body image. My name is Kimberly. I am the host of This Fat Girl Life. And real quick, I just want to take a moment and thank all of the people that support me in this podcast and my other podcasts. So if you are continuing to support me and you want to keep me caffeinated for more, go to buymeacoffee.com/This Fat Girl Life. Let me bring this up so that we can see all the beautiful people. Today, I am joined by the beautiful Michelle Hallum. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I've lost you. Are you here?
I am still here.
Oh, you're back. I lost you for a minute there.
Technology. So, Michelle, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
So thank you for having me on. I'm really happy to be here and be able to speak to all your listeners out there about who I am and what I do. So I'm a coach for mums. I help mums in transitional periods. So after having kids, I think a lot of us can get lost in motherhood, and it's just trying to come out the other side of that. And when you do come out the other side of that, you're kind of like, you've already gone through this transformation of having kids, and it's like another transformation to become who that woman is after that, not the mum, because you kind of, that happens kind of on its own to a certain extent. But like I said, that the kind of woman gets lost in all of that sometimes. So it's that coming out again as a woman. Sometimes that can be tricky. Sometimes you need a bit of help with that, of like knowing who you are and what you want to do.
I think I agree. I think you definitely do tend to lose your identity because you've gone from a woman to being a wife or a significant other to being a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And you have all these roles that you play.
Mm-hmm.
But where is that original woman?
Yeah.
So I definitely, I've been there. I've got a daughter who is now grown and has her own child.
Oh,
and
wow.
I see that with her as well. I think every woman has dealt with that, when they've had children or a partner. It's not even motherhood. It's just in general, we lose ourselves.
Yeah.
So kind of explain why it is so important to keep that connection to that inner woman.
Well, I think, burnout is this thing that, we tend to associate. Well, you can be associated with all sorts of things, but I don't know if we ever connect it really to being a mum. And like you say, you're having so many different roles that I think there are a lot of burnt out women out there. And, a lot of the problems we see with low self-esteem, with, what you're connected with as well, with like body image and all of these kinds of things. We're so hard on ourselves. We put ourselves on these pedestals of having to be the best at everything, the best mum, the best wife, the best lover, the best whatever it is that whatever role you're playing in that moment. We've got this kind of pressure that society puts on us, and we put on ourselves, and other women unfortunately put it on us as well. This is something else we need to kind of be aware of, is women working together with women kind of rise women up. Whereas when we're kind of fighting against each other, we're all just bringing all of us down. So, I mean, connecting with that inner woman is, I think, connecting with that inner woman within all of us, and remembering we're united, and we have to be united. So first it begins with you, unite with yourself, and then, unite with all the other women, and let's help each other, not kind of tear each other down.
And I absolutely love that you brought up 2 points within that. One, we do all try to become Superwoman. We all try to play this superhero role of trying to do it all. And even without young kids in my home, I see it within myself of working full time, running a business. I've been going to school. I'm a wife. I'm trying to take care of, things around the house. And you hit that burnout. You totally hit that burnout. And then the other point that you brought up that I absolutely love and I resonate so highly with is that competing against each other. And unfortunately, we see so much comparison because you see it on social media, you see it on television of these women who just seem to be able to do it all and never have a problem. And I don't think that's real. No. I think we're competing against an image that is not realistic, not attainable, and it destroys our self-image with that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think social media has got a positive role in society, and I think it's got a negative role in society. And I think, these themes that we're talking about have maybe always existed, but with the rise of social media, they've just become more apparent in our lives because we're all so much more interconnected than we used to be. So now you've got this platform where people can actually, their voice can be heard, even if it's only to a few people. But whereas before it was like, if you said something, it was maybe to one other girlfriend or to, like, I don't know, an intimate group of people. Whereas now you've got people kind of giving their opinion on social media, and it's getting a wider reach, even if it's not, it doesn't have to be thousands of people, because it's like this ripple effect that it just kind of goes out there. And I think that, one theory that I've heard, I don't know how it's a bit of a conspiracy theory, but this idea of to keep men in the stronger position in society, then you need to keep women down. And one way to do that is to sort of like divide and conquer. So as long as the women are fighting amongst themselves, then the men can keep sort of like, rising up, if you like, and kind of having all these powerful positions, because the women are still down here scrabbling amongst themselves. And there's this idea that kind of like that the men are kind of feeding into that somehow. I'm not quite sure how it all works, but I do feel like the women need to stop fighting amongst themselves and come together as a powerful force for good, not to kind of bring men down, but to restore balance to the world, because I feel like it's very unbalanced at the moment.
And I think we see that not only just, against men and women in general, but we're seeing that in so many areas of life right now. I feel like there's just this constant battle, and it is a struggle for survival. It does not matter what race you are, what gender you are. It's a constant battle, and there's no balance whatsoever. I mean, everything is just completely off kilter. And I'll be honest, I think, definitely everything with this pandemic has definitely contributed to it. Because you have so many people who lost their jobs, who had to stay at home to be with the children so the children could go to school online. Everything got thrown off balance. And I think there is a struggle to try to get that back.
Yeah. But what I think I know COVID has brought some, it's been a very, very hard time for a lot of people, and there's been a lot of a lot of death and a lot of hurt and upset and heartbreak brought about by it. But I think it has had a positive effect in some ways too, in this sense that it's made the world slow down. It's made us take a big, long, hard look at ourselves and consider what kind of lives we were living. I mean, even for a preventative sense of, maybe we can't prevent another virus, but just by understanding where this one's come from and kind of seeing how we've been encroaching on the environment for so long, it's like, having this crossover between humans just kind of keep reaching out and out into the natural world. And now we've got things from the natural world coming into our world. And it's like, well, yeah, if we're not kind of respecting this balance, if we're not respecting the kind of the ecosystems that we live in and understanding it better, then we're going to have more and more of this. And then I think that kind of can be reflected in the home as well. It's like, if you're not respecting the balance in the home, I think a lot of women during the pandemic kind of went, I'm doing my full-time job and I'm being a teacher. What the hell is going on? It was just a real wake-up call of, we knew we were doing a lot anyway, but then when we were put in this new position, it was even a starker, contrast between why am I doing so much more than other people? And I know in my household there was and I consider my partner, reasonably progressive, but I still feel that most of the workload's always been mine, especially with the kids. And come the pandemic time, it was like, well, how, you're at home working too. So we're going to work out a way to split this like
Right.
50-50, because now you don't have the excuse that you've got to go off to work because you're here with me. Because I'd always kind of put my work on the back burner to make sure I was here for the kids after school and all of that kind of stuff. But suddenly there was no school and my partner was here. And this actually gave me the time that I could actually give to myself as a woman, not as a mum, not as a wife, not as a whatever, but as a woman. And what's come out of this has been basically Planet Mum coaching and the thing that I'm doing now. So from
And
my
I
point of view,
love that you
COVID's
had
kind of
that.
brought that around. Yeah.
I love that you had that, that's again, that positive that came out of something so negative. And I love that you just spoke on, even with all of it, when you have both parents that are working from home, you could take that time, even if it's, an hour a week, that is an intentional time to discover yourself as a woman. And that kind of brings me to the next point of how do you rediscover yourself as a woman?
Well, I think it's a personal quest for each and every woman, but I think the first thing is you've got to decide to do it. That's kind of key, because if you don't, then you're not going to put any time or any energy into that. So there's plenty of different ways that you can go about discovering yourself, and I think like I said, it's a very personal thing. Some things that some women love to do, other women don't. We're all individual in that sense.
Right.
But if you're never actually just even trying, then you're never gonna rediscover anything. So I think the first thing is making that conscious decision of, I am going to put myself first for, like you say, an hour a week or however much time you can realistically dedicate to yourself. But I challenge any woman to say that there is not one single moment a day that they can find to prioritize themselves. It might mean that something else gets pushed down the list, but that's the point. It's like that needs to be the first decision, a real conscious decision to put yourself first, even if it's for 5 minutes, even if it's for 2 minutes. But it has to be this thing of, I am putting myself first in this moment right now. And then
it has to be a very intentional process.
Yes, very, very, absolutely.
And I actually saw a thing on Clubhouse yesterday about solo dating, taking yourself out for a date. I thought that was just such a great idea because I go out on dates with my husband. We have date night. But taking yourself on a date kind of struck a chord of what an amazing idea, and how many women are not doing that, even if it's a spa day at home. You don't have to go out and spend a whole lot of money to do it, but to take yourself on a date and give yourself that attention and adoration, I think is just such an amazing thing. Like, I was kind of blown away by the concept of it, and why in 45 years I never thought of it is beyond me.
Well, because we're not encouraged to. I think that comes from part of it. I mean, I've got 2 daughters. They're very young. They're 7 and 4, and I think everything that I'm doing, even if I'm doing it for myself, there's this kind of element of like, I'm doing it for them too, because I think this is, we all come from, I think every generation we kind of like have this mini evolution of sorts. And I think for women, it's like we're definitely in this time now. We're going, you need to look after yourself. You can be a mum, you can be a partner, you can be a successful businesswoman, you can be a stay-at-home mum, you can be anything you want to be, but you have to look after yourself. And I think this is something that previous generations, my mum for sure, didn't do it. Like she spoke to me the other day and she went, I don't really understand what it is you're doing. And I went, I know you don't, Mum. And I tried to explain to her, and I was like, it's about self-care. You've got to look after yourself, this, that, and the other, because I think there's a lot of mums out there with burnout, etc., etc. And she was just like, well, my day, we just got on with it. And I went, I know you did, mum, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was the best thing to do.
Right.
It
doesn't make it right.
No, but she cannot get her head around it because she feels it's a criticism, I think, of sorts. And I'm like, I'm not judging you. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just saying maybe there's a more loving way to be with ourselves. And I think that, we need to be aware of that rather than thinking we have to do everything and we have to struggle while we're doing it, that we can't ever have an off moment, because there's this idea that to be all these, if we're demanding all these things, then we have to, stand up and we have to take it all on the chin and all the rest of it. And it's like, no, we should be able to have all the things that we want, but also that should include having time to be kind and gentle and compassionate with ourselves, because how on earth can we do that with other people if we're not doing it to ourselves?
Well, and I think, you were talking about, how your mom was talking about, in her day. I think we've seen the progression, even, from the beginning, where the role of the woman has slowly evolved. Mm-hmm. Men have always had this role of head of household, of, the man. Mm-hmm. Women have slowly evolved. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing the importance of that mental self-care, that emotional self-care, because women are very, very complex creatures. Mm-hmm. And there's so many different facets. So if we don't fine-tune all of those facets and get that balance within ourselves, there's always going to be that inner turmoil.
And I think women, like you say, we're resilient creatures and we can take so much. And I think in the past, previous generations, it's like, because we can take so much, we've just taken it because we kind of thought that was our role. Whereas now we're kind of, like you say, because we're constantly, I think women are in constant flux, constantly transforming and reinventing themselves. And I've actually got a theory on this. I think it's to do with the fact that we have a menstrual cycle and we have children. I mean, our bodies are constantly in flux. Every single month we're in flux. Men don't necessarily have this adaptation or this flexibility because it's not demanded of them by their own body. I mean, we couldn't be more in tune with nature in that respect of, something that happens to us outwith of our control that has real emotional and physical effects on us. Mm-hmm. And I think in the past, women, like I said, they took so much that they just kind of thought, well, because we can take so much, then we should take so much. But because we've evolved, we keep evolving, and we're like, well, maybe we can take a lot, but that doesn't mean we should have to take a lot. Or maybe we can actually add in some positive stuff to that too, And like you say, it's this constant redefining of what do we want to be? What do we want to teach our children, our daughters growing up, and even our sons? I think as a mother, you should be teaching your son what a woman is too, and how they need to operate in this world, because I don't think men are stagnant, and I don't think they should remain stagnant. And I think both sexes need to keep evolving. But like I said, I think maybe men haven't felt the urge so much as women because they've been in this kind of higher position of power for so long that necessity hasn't been there. Although, sorry.
Maybe it has been. Maybe it has been, and we just haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Because again, it comes down to, and I think I've seen this throughout my entire life of, men are taught to be the man's man, and they internalize, whereas women have learned to become more outward.
Yeah.
And women are generally more expressive.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Maybe that desire for men has always been there. And that's something that maybe we as women need to try to coax that out a little bit. And maybe that could help restore some of that gender balance.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you're absolutely right. And something that springs to mind is I'm here in Barcelona, and the schools are fairly progressive here. I mean, in terms of gender socialization. And a big push these last few years has been about degenderizing, is that the term? Toys. So in the nurseries, the kind of public nurseries, they deliberately try to give boys kind of traditional girls' toys, and vice versa, you know, or they just have, I mean, like it's not like, right, here, have a doll, but they're just put like dolls out, and that's like, you know, everyone's there to play with the dolls. Because what psychologists have been saying is, because boys don't get that or they haven't up until now been given that outward opportunity to play with dolls, because it's been kind of been a stigmatism, like this negative association with it, then they've not been able to learn or work on empathy or compassion or, you know, caring for others. So like you say, they've actually been stunted psychologically with their growth because they've been pushed to be something else. So I think women are maybe a lot louder in that respect of like, no, we are expressive, and we want this and we want that. And maybe men, like you say, have had that internalization of this, and to bring the balance, you're quite right. I think, you know, both sexes need to be open to that.
That's good. That's good. Look at us coming up with theories.
I know, you know, anyone would think we're sort of like, you know, the next top psychologist of the world, but why not? You know, why not?
So, what are 2 tips that you can give any woman out there to really work on finding her inner self?
Okay, so like I said, I don't know if it's so much as a tip, but first, I think self-awareness, recognizing that you want to do it. This needs to be kind of step 1. And then after that, it's like getting to know yourself. So I love this idea of, like you said, of going on a date. But I think even before that, it's kind of reconnecting with, what do I actually like? What do I like to do? So this is my first tip is, depending on your kind of your preferred, what's the word I'm looking for? Your preferred style of learning. So you've got kind of visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and is there another one? Nope, I think that's it. The 3, isn't it? Yeah. To try and be creative with this. So for example, I'm quite a visual person, so I like to brainstorm. So getting a piece of paper, you can, you know, depending on, again, your resources that you've got. I've got 2 young kids, so we've got like a crafts room, we've got loads of magazines and stuff like that. And just I sat and I looked through one of the magazines, and just anything that caught my eye, anything that attracted me, I was like cutting out and just sticking and making a kind of collage. And just by doing this act in itself is something creative, which is very positive for you and your mind. But it also kind of just made, for one, it made me remember that I really like cutting things out and sticking them on paper. You know, that kind of act of doing that was like, oh, wow, that was loads of fun. And I started getting very creative with the colors and, you know, things like that. But also then you kind of see what kind of things are coming out of that. So I reconnected with music because I kind of forgot that I liked music. I used to love listening to music, and now I've got this kind of whole gap of maybe 10 years or so where I haven't really focused too much on music because I've been focused on my relationship, then getting pregnant, then having a baby. So, you know, through doing this kind of activity, it awoken these kinds of things in me of remembering what I like to do. So it's almost just, you know, it isn't necessarily that you'll pick out pictures and stuff of things you'd like, but it's like opening a door to your creative side, remembering what it is that gives you that sensation, you know, that makes you feel like you're playing, basically. So that's a kind of visual way to do it. Auditory is you could just sort of like, you know, listen to lots of different podcasts, or like yours, for example, or you could listening to different radio stations, stuff like that, you know, just seeing what different ideas are out there, seeing what things are out there, paying attention to what makes you go, oh, that sounds quite interesting. It's kind of opening yourself up again to the rest of the world, because we tend to shut down and we're very much in our place, our world, with our family, and but not internally about what we like connected to the rest of the world. So that would be my first tip, of sort of become more aware of what it is that you like, and what gives you that sense of playfulness and fun. And then secondly, my second tip to that would be, act on that, to actually start looking for things that you could do connected to that. And again, they don't have to be like big things like going and joining a tap dancing class, or I don't know, joining a rock band, or whatever it is. But if you remember you like reading, for example, then you could start having a little look at what books you might like to read, and writing a list of sort of like the top 3. So go on the internet and find things that you might be interested in. Music, then you could be like, okay, what kind of music do I like? Because obviously music's evolved quite a lot. And I found when I kind of went back to music, then there was all this kind of newish music out there that I liked, but I'd never really, it wasn't from 10 years ago, it's from now.
Right.
So it's about rediscovering what's out there. And by doing this, you're redefining who you are. So you've kind of got this old version of who you were, and then it kind of gets lost and forgotten about. Then you kind of start to remember, okay, yeah, I used to like all these things, and then reconnecting that with the kind of modern world that you're living in here and now. So you're not kind of just being the person you were before, but you're remembering the things you were, and then letting them kind of blossom again, but in this new here and now moment. So they're my kind of 2 top tips for it's an evolution, it's a process. It's not kind of a quick fix, unfortunately.
It doesn't happen overnight. We didn't lose ourselves overnight. We're not going to find ourselves overnight.
Exactly.
And, unfortunately, we do live in a microwave society where, so often we want things instantly because we can attain them instantly. And it doesn't happen like that. I mean, I feel like you really have to commit.
Yeah.
You have to make a commitment. You have to be intentional. This has to be a priority for you.
Exactly. And that's what, so taking from tip 1 and tip 2, if you like, this kind of beginning part of the process. I mean, I think one of your end goals could be this idea of going on a date with yourself, but what would that date involve? Well, you have to go through that process of discovering what it is that you like again to do that. Or even, with like some first dates of maybe you go somewhere and you don't know what to expect. I mean, there's also that element of you could surprise yourself. You could do something that you never normally do. I'm not a big one for art galleries and things like that, to be honest. But I actually think I would prefer to do that on my own than with somebody else. I think I would appreciate it more if it was just me in the art, because I think sometimes if I'm with somebody else, I don't know if I feel that there's kind of expectations, or there's some kind of conversation that has to be had, or, just you have to share that. And sometimes you don't want to share things. Sometimes you want to do things on your own. And so you might discover that about yourself, that actually, I don't like going to art galleries with other people, but on my own, actually, I really quite enjoy it. So,
right.
You could do these kind of surprise things. You could do a combination of things that you like, going to the park and taking a book because you've rediscovered that you love reading, and getting yourself a coffee and having that date, or maybe taking yourself off to the cinema on your own just to see how that feels, and just treat yourself nice.
I love that. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the show and having this discussion. I think it was a very important discussion that people needed to hear. I do have one final question for you. I ask this of every guest. So if you've watched any of the previous episodes, you know the question. But if you have not, then I get to surprise you.
Okay. You're going to surprise me.
What is one thing that you absolutely love about yourself?
This is something that I've rediscovered about myself very recently. And the thing I absolutely love about myself is my intuition. That something that I used to, that maybe a lot of people made me think wasn't real, because I think intuition is something that you can't measure, you can't see. So people are very quick to kind of dismiss it. And just recently I've kind of rediscovered and reconnected with that I do have intuition, and it is very good, and I'm learning to trust it again. So definitely that.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. As a reminder tonight, guys, we are going to have a special second episode today with Bob the Drag Queen. This is one of my dream people to get to interview, and it is happening tonight, 7 Pacific, 8 Mountain Time. So I will see you back here tonight. Michelle, thank you so much for being here. I have loved having you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Of course. Make sure to subscribe, guys.